morning, guys. Welcome to episode 10 of Safari Snippets. The weather's a little bit grim outside today. We were going to have our guides Q&A outside, but it's a little bit overcast and wet, so we're doing it inside Masava Lodge. But before we get into that, some news for you.
We have a really cool quiz this week for you guys. Please stay tuned to the end where we give you guys a little bit more information and give away what the prize is.
There's going to be a very cool prize. Okay, so let's get into it. Our Q&A with the guides. Nick, why don't you go first?
Okay, so I have the first question from one of our viewers is, why do snakes lose their skin? This is quite an interesting question. Snakes will actually shed their skin in order to help them to grow. And then sometimes snakes actually also get parasites with them on their body. And shedding their skin actually helps them to lose those parasites as well. And it's quite interesting. It almost removes right off the snake like a sock. It starts off at the nose and then works its way out. And the shedding actually becomes inside out during that process, which is pretty cool.
Thanks, Nick. Okay, so question for me. Emily, have you had any close encounters? I've had a few. We do sometimes get quite close to the animals. There's none that have made me particularly scared. However, I did once have an old elephant bull who rested his trunk on my car door, and I was looking at his tusks like this, and my heart was in my throat at that point. So that was about as close as it gets.
It's pretty close. Cool. Alright. Another question is, if we were to visit, what would your typical day look like? Our typical day is always a difficult one. Actually, not every day is quite typical, but it normally starts with quite an early morning wake up with a nice cup of coffee before the sun rises. Then we typically head out for a morning safari for around 3 hours or so. Depending on what we see and what we find, come back, it's a really nice breakfast. And then pretty much the day is yours to relax around the pool, enjoy the sun. And then it's a nice lunch. And then typically we head out again for an afternoon sundowner, where we will watch the African sunsets over the bush, which is my favorite time. And then typically a little bit with the spotlight, as you've seen in one of our episodes. And we make our way back to camp for a nice 3-course dinner. And then we look forward to tomorrow. Cool.
Not a hard life.
No, not so difficult.
Okay, another question. Do animals become familiar with you as rangers? Familiar as in they recognize individual people? Not so much. Maybe elephants have the intelligence to recognize individual people, but other animals I don't think so. However, there is something which we term habituation. So the animals, they get used to seeing our cars every day, and they get habituated to it. So that, if we drive up, if you've seen us come up to the leopard, for example, that moved right past in front of our car, and it didn't really pay us any attention. So it's very used to seeing cars, and it just ignores us. So that's what we call habituation. I think that's the closest thing to becoming familiar with us that I can describe.
Cool. Another question we have is, why can't ostriches fly? Quite a difficult question. A little bit more technical if we have to go into it. One, they can't fly because they're really heavy birds. But two is, if we go a little bit more details, they actually lack what we call a kill, which connects the breastbone into the pectoral muscle, and that would allow for flight to happen. But the ostrich actually lacks that part, and it has developed sort of small wings, which doesn't allow to lift its heavy body off the ground. And being on the ground, it's developed another way to protect itself rather than having to fly. It's got an extremely powerful kick, as well as really large claws, which is able to slice things into half. So it doesn't need to fly in order to protect itself. I'm quite happy to just be on the land.
Nice. Okay. Right, now this is a question from the little boy of a friend of mine called Ruben. So, hello, Ruben. And he says, Emily, how do giraffes sleep? And is it true that elephants eat peanuts? Okay, so how do giraffes sleep is a very good question. I get asked this a lot on safari. They can sleep standing up. A lot of animals can sleep standing up because they always want to be ready to run in case a predator arrives. But they can also lie down. Kind of like a horse, they'll lie on their side and then they'll curl their neck around onto their back. But they'll literally do that for 5 minutes. They will only lay down for a maximum of 20 minutes at a time, and they'll sleep for no more than 5 at a time. And in an entire 24 hours, definitely no more than 2 hours of sleep. Can you imagine only having 2 hours sleep? We don't get a lot as guides, but we get more than 2. And elephants, it's not true that they eat peanuts. Peanuts is not a natural food here in South Africa. They actually come from South America, I believe. So it's not something they would come across in the wild. And it's not something they would choose to eat. They eat grass and leaves and branches, roots. They eat all these sorts of things, fruits. But peanuts, apparently, I did a little looking up. Apparently that comes from when the elephants used to be in the circus. And the guys wanted, the guests to spend more money. And they had peanuts, so they said, go and feed the elephants peanuts. So buy a bag of peanuts to feed the elephants.
That's interesting,
yeah, but it's not a natural food for them, so you shouldn't do that. But great question. Thanks, Ruben.
All right, so we have a question for the both of us.
Okay.
Are there any animals you haven't seen and why you would love to see them?
Oh.
I think there's a few more for you there.
So I have a long list of animals I haven't seen, which Nick has seen all of them. But my time will come. My number one, which I guess is most guides' number one, is the pangolin. It's an extremely rare animal. It's actually one of the most trafficked animals in the entire world. Very, very shy and hard to spot. So every guide wants to see it because it's rare and difficult to spot, basically. It's kind of one of those moments when you see one, you might never see one again.
So yeah, mine, I'm quite fortunate. I have seen that one. So mine comes down to a striped polecat or a zorilla, which is very, very difficult nocturnal animal to see. But I'm a little bit more keen on trying to find a new bird, which is something else we as guides are quite interested in. And one that I'm very sought after is a palm nut vulture, so a vulture that doesn't eat meat, but actually eats fruits off of palm trees. And that's something I would love to see.
Cool. I would also like to see that.
Mm.
Okay, and the last one we have time for right now. Also for both of us, what are your favorite animals and why?
It's a question we often get asked, and I think we often like to always say the word favorites as guides because everything has a spot in our heart. But if I had to give a top 3, it would probably be elephants and then a toss-up between a leopard and a wild dog. I'll just explain why number 1 for me is elephants is just the really spiritual connection with an animal, as well as just a gentle giant. I think extremely misunderstood in many ways, and just to spend a lot of time with these special animals allows us to learn a great deal probably about ourselves, as well as about these very beautiful animals. So those are my animals.
Well, he kind of stole my thunder there. I should have gone first. So, I have the same 3 favorites, but in a different order. So my number 1 would be wild dogs, but it's very, very closely followed by a leopard. So close that sometimes I actually change my mind, especially if I'm sitting with Saseko, who's my favorite. And then my number 3 is elephants. So wild dogs are my favorite because they're so social. Every time you see them, it's always exciting. They're interacting, they're playing, they're hunting. They hunt every single day, twice a day, and it's during the day as well. So when you find wild dogs, you're almost guaranteed a really exciting sighting. And just the way they look after each other, they care for each other, I find it very touching. They're cool animals.
Very special animals indeed.
Yeah.
Very special.
Okay, we've got on quite long actually. This is quite a long episode, so thanks for all your questions. I'm sorry we didn't get to answer any more. So now let's announce the big quiz and exciting prize that we've got.
So we have a quiz for you guys, which we'll post a link for. To enter the quiz, we please ask you to subscribe to the Ukiyo Claseri Live YouTube page, as well as Claseri Drift's Facebook page. There'll be 10 questions that you guys would have had to watch the episode in order to get some of the answers to. And we think we've got a really special prize for you, which is a hot air balloon safari with a champagne breakfast for 2 people with Bill Harrop's the original Bill Harrop's hot air balloon safari. Which I think is pretty cool. I would like to keep it for myself.
I have never done a hot air balloon safari, and I would be super excited. Are we allowed to enter?
I don't think so. So yeah, guys, please enter the quiz. Share it with your friends and family so they have a chance to win as well. And we look forward to giving you guys the winner in the 1st of May.
Okay, yeah, so we're announcing the winner on the 1st of May. Remember to subscribe to Ukiyo Claseri Live YouTube and like our Claseri Drift Facebook page in order to enter. Good luck, and we'll see you in a couple of days.
Have a good one. Cheers.